So, very warm welcome to our session today. And our topic today is respect and self respect. And these are both, of course, very big subjects. And I think subjects that are relevant for each person basically all the time, both individually and collectively. I find that this is a subject that continually comes up for me in one way or another, with a lot of questions about building self respect and what that is based on for the self respect to be solid, a solid foundation. And also, what about respect? That sometimes we might feel that respect is demanded of us, or that we should respect. Very often in our cultures and maybe as children, we are often told that we have to respect. And so maybe our relationship with this word needs a little bit of clearing up, because I think that it has a lot of misunderstandings. I know for me, respect generally meant obey, and respect means listen without speaking. It means never answer back, never share your opinion, never say anything. And so that, as I realized later on, is really nothing to do with respect, at least not the kind of respect that I would think is true respect. And so, of course, if you think about self-respect, that in those terms of what respect might mean, it doesn't make any sense at all. So anyway, both of these words and concepts and states of being, attitudes, are things that I think are worthwhile exploring very often. And so starting from this saying that this wise advice, actually, which in fact was one of the things that one of the dadis, Dadi Prakashmani, not Dadi Janki this time, but Dadi Prakashmani, who used to be the administrative head of the Brahmakumaris for a long time, for I think at least maybe 25 years, if not more, probably more actually. But she, especially in her last few years, and she passed away in 2007, and in her last few years, one of the things that she would repeat very often in her classes and in her advice even to individuals was the priority for each person is to stay in your self-respect and then to give respect to others. So the first step within all of that is, of course, to be able to be in my self-respect. So this is a very different idea from, let's say, having respect, having self-respect. And so I see it as being in my self-respect, which is very much a state of consciousness. It's a presence. It's the way I consider myself. And because I consider myself in a certain way, I'm able to think, to act, to behave, to interact in that way. So I see, shall we say, what I thought we could do today actually was just to have a little bit of an overview of the perspective maybe that we might share about self-respect and respect. And then I thought we could do a little exercise together, because it's always more effective when we can apply it to something that's happening in our everyday life. So we'll first look a little bit more at these two conditions, shall we say. And so I see the widest level of self-respect, starting with that, is to consider myself to be the artist of my life, that I am writing my own story, to recognize myself as that. And so this is taking it's like giving that worth and that dignity to what my life is, to who I am. And I consider myself to be worthy of love, worthy of happiness, worthy of peace, of strength, of freedom, etc. That in this state of the widest, the highest self-respect is that I consider myself to be a child of God and an eternal being of purity and spiritual light. And you can add to that definition if you like. It's not really a definition, but maybe it's a way of looking at it, at what is the deepest or the highest, whichever way you like to see it, self-respect. And so that's what it is for me. And maybe you can think about it and write it and share it, of course. What is the highest and the deepest level of self-respect for you? And looking a little bit more, shall we say, at a smaller scale, coming to more details, shall we say, when I'm in my self-respect, I consider my role to be worthwhile, and I consider my life to be meaningful. So I'm able to find meaning in my life. And this is what enables me to stay in my self-respect. So it's not just about what I'm doing, but it's about how and why I'm doing it. And I'm able to find the meaning and put meaning into my life. And so this means that my mistakes can be like learning curves, and my weaknesses can be indications or signposts of what I need to change, what I need to do, what I need to add or work on. So they are like indications. And I'm not pulled down by my mistakes or by things. I don't feel humiliated, because self-respect means that there is humility, but there's not humiliation. Even in situations where normally maybe someone would feel humiliated, but someone who has self-respect will not use that to let oneself be put down, but will use that to develop humility. And so we'll learn from that and not feel the guilt and the need to, in some way, feel that they are no good or that they have to improve and so on. And so whilst we're learning, whilst we're growing, but the foundation of self-respect is understanding my true identity and working with that. So, and even further, looking further at my day, at my details of, at the details, shall we say, of how does self-respect come out, is in the way that I speak and behave, the way I act towards others. Is that representative of my principles, of what's important to me? the way I respond to difficulties, the way I respond to criticism or anger, or attacks of any kind, all of that is an indication of the presence or the absence of my self-respect. Is my position of self-respect such that whatever is coming towards me is telling me something about the other person, not something about me? And so am I able to stay, in a sense, loving and detached enough to be able to see that? And that is about, I can only do that when I really know and I'm sure and I consider and act towards myself as a being who is worthy, is whose life is meaningful, who is present for themselves. It's when I become absent for myself, when I'm somehow being kidnapped by some situation or some emotional disturbance, even of another person, that I don't know what's going on for me. And so it's very difficult to listen and to be able to be stable. Then I become dependent on what's happening outside. And so all these different levels, and because it's such a big subject, really, I think it's something that we each can explore in a lot of detail, really, to be able to really feel what it's like for me to be in my self-honor, in my self-respect, to honor who I am, to recognize myself for the being that I am. And so obviously this means that I cannot be caught up and give so much importance to the mistakes, to the hurt, to the suffering, to the things that are making me feel small and down. That someone who has self-respect will be able to see all of those things for what they are and actually use them to learn and to come even closer to my true identity. So this is the aim. And then we're all on the journey, we're all on the way. So then what about respect? When I think about respect, again, thinking about respect for others, other people, because then of course there's respect for nature, there's respect for objects, for matter, there's respect for an institution, there's respect for all sorts of different things. But let's consider respect for other people in this case. So the way I see it is that the highest level of respect for others, which is something that we can always anyway have, no matter what the person is like. And this is, I find that this is something very, very useful. So the highest level of respect that I can have for anyone is to consider them as a being worthy of love, worthy of happiness, just because of their existence. And so they don't have to have done anything, or they don't have to have done even anything right, anything that is according to what I think they should or shouldn't do. But irrespective of what's going on for them, that I can consider them as a being worthy of love and happiness just because of their existence. Just like on a physical level, everyone has a right to food and to water and to shelter and to many other things. But actually, and these are spiritual rights in a way. These are rights that we all have, which are rights to um, to be to experience love, to experience peace. And without that, actually, we can't survive. On a spiritual level, we become very distant from who we are. We become very weak, shall we say. Just like on a physical level, without food and water, we become very weak and eventually the body perishes. And so it's like, just like on a physical human rights level, everyone has certain rights, and so just understanding this from a spiritual perspective, that I can consider everyone as being worthy of love and happiness just because of their existence. And I can see them taking that further, as the highest vision of respect or attitude of respect is that I can see them as a child of God, as an actor in the drama of life, having their own part and their own story. And so, whether I like that part or I like their story or not is completely besides the point. But just to know that without even one single actor, the drama of life cannot happen. And so everyone has their own part. And so even though like in anything, whether it's in the seasons of nature, there are moments where a whole tree will fall down, for example, and things will be destroyed and different things become instrumental for other things to be damaged or destroyed. But that's part of nature. We say this is nature. And so in a way, it's a little bit like that. The drama of life has every single kind of expression within it, every single kind of actor. And so the respect comes when I see each one not only as a being who is worthy of love and happiness just because of their existence, but I see them as a child of God. I see them as an actor in the drama of life, having their own special part and their own story. So these are some of the things that help me to have a vision of respect for another person, irrespective, shall we say, of what they have done or not done, irrespective of the hurt that they may have been instrumental to have caused. And this is something that I find is very useful, a vision, which is a kind of a global vision. But when applied to individuals that may be in front of me, it can be very, very effective. And so continuing with that, what is the vision of respect for another is that I may not agree with their way of being. They may have great prejudices and standards that are way below mine, as I see them, for example. But I respect that each one is living their own choices. And so respect for me is not to take responsibility for their choices and way of being. So the respect is actually in the not doing in this case, that I'm not trying to control how they are. In fact, it's a lot of disrespect when I try to control someone, because what I'm saying is that the way I am is correct, the way you are is incorrect. And so I accept that it is their choice no matter what. And so respect means to stay clear, to avoid wanting or trying to control others. And so in this way, the respect for the self means to stay present, close to my principles, and to be able to maintain my vision of myself in the face of criticism or difficulties or whatever obstacles that may come in front of me. So, those were a few thoughts about self respect and about respect. And I just wanted to see whether any of you would like to share anything at this point on either of these two, on what maybe you've heard or what you think about it. And then we will go into the exercise that I've thought of, which is like a reflection or meditation. Just also reading the comment from Rhoda, which is, I think, respect is giving others space to be themselves. And also, self respect is not trying to constrain ourselves in a preconceived box. So, yes, I think very valid comments that that have been made till now, and I think that it's very important to take responsibility for what I think, what I feel, and for what I say, of course. And so I guess to take the courage, and it takes more courage actually to say it like that. I feel, I think, in my opinion. And so yes, I do feel that it is about giving respect to others and having the self-respect. And I think also the best way to put that across is by one's own example. Because actually, in a sense, by saying that someone is right or wrong, I think that as well is like a judgment on them. And in a sense, whether they are right or wrong, it doesn't really mean anything, but it's useful to see, okay, well, what is it that I would do, I would choose to do? And I learn, okay, well, I'm not going to do it like that, but this is how I choose to do it. And so I think it's when there's in terms of self-respect, why these two are so connected, self-respect and respect, is because when I really deeply respect myself, whilst knowing my weaknesses, whilst knowing the mistakes that I've made, the things that I've had to learn the hard way, I still respect myself. Whilst knowing everything in detail, I can still respect myself. And it is this that will enable me to respect others in spite of their mistakes, even though they have standards that are just completely not my standards. And why am I able to respect them? Why am I able to respect myself, even though I see all those unpleasant and ugly things, maybe? Is because what I'm respecting is something that is much deeper, much wider than the act, the choice, the thing that was done or not done, even the values that someone may have, actually. But I just respect them because of their being, because of their existence. And so this, I feel, for the self, is the most basic and the most important thing to respect, that I am, and that's it. I respect the fact that I am, I was, and I will be. And this is amazing, to consider myself to be an eternal being and to see others as an eternal being is the most basic, yet the deepest way to respect the self and to respect others. And I think it is exactly this that will draw us out of the quicksand of judgments of each other. That I think it's important to be able to express, and it takes self-respect to express things, express the truth, and to to give indications, and then to immediately jump up to the level of being able to have the respect no matter what. So what I thought actually now is to do a little exercise which will be combined with the meditation that we do. And the exercise is to think about one scene or one situation. Maybe it's a conversation with someone, or maybe it's some interaction with a person that happens regularly. And the exercise is to notice in that scene where very often your emotional stability is challenged. You know? So something that presses your buttons inside, something that gets the fire going of anger or dismay or suffering of some sort. Maybe as a reaction, you feel paralyzed, you can't say anything, you get frozen, or maybe you want to run away, or maybe you want to fight back. But it's something that happens regularly. So just think about something. It might be any kind of a situation that happens fairly regularly. And you find it's the same, a little bit like we talked about in the reaction to response, that you find yourself reacting in a similar way each time. And so to think about then, so that's the first step, is to remember some scene, maybe recent, maybe not that recent, good if it's something recent, that tends to shake up your emotional stability, even in a little way, not necessarily in a big thing. And now think about how you would respond when you are fully in your seat of self-respect. What would it look like? Maybe it hasn't happened actually yet, but you're going to, visualize it. You're going to imagine that if you are absolutely in your self-respect, which means all the things that we've looked at and others that you think about. So to be in my seat of self-respect means that I consider myself to be a being who is worthy of love, worthy of happiness, strength, peace. I consider myself to be the artist of my own life, to be the one who's writing my own story. So I consider myself, I'm present for myself. So when I'm in this self-respect, and here comes the person who usually presses my buttons, what would a response that is based on self-respect look like in a practical way? What thoughts and what feelings would you have? What might you say to yourself? So that's the second step, shall we say. First one is that you think of a scene that happens regularly. Second is you imagine that you are in your position of self-respect and you respond to them. What might you, first of all, say to yourself so that you can stay in your position of self-respect? And then the third step in this is, what would your response to them look like? When you are respecting them as a being just because of their existence, not because of what they are saying or should have said or didn't say, that maybe you don't agree with, you don't resonate with. But how is it that you can still maintain your vision of respect and consider them to be beings who are worthy of love and worthy of happiness? And so the respect based on your highest vision of the other person. So not the details of what they're doing or not doing, but what might you feel and think as you are stable in your attitude of respect? What might you say to them? You know? So we're gonna do now a guided meditation and go through these 2 or 3 steps. So, so have your situation ready for yourself, and and I think just going through this visualization for the self can be very useful to transform the actual practical situation, you know, that we might face regularly that gives us grief, and we take suffering from that regularly. So why not change it? So yes, I see Irina is saying to see others as eternal beings without judgment. To me, this is the core thing, but so difficult sometimes. Exactly. And so this is why this exercise may help us to make it a little bit easier in the heat of the moment. So, so first of all, is that okay? The exercise we're doing, is that clear enough? Anyway, during the meditation, I will, remind us about what the 3 steps that we're doing. Effectively, it's 2 steps because one is just to think about one situation, one scene that comes regularly, that happens regularly in your life in these times. So, first of all, of course, take a deep breath, find a comfortable position, and let the body relax. And as I feel myself settling into the quiet of the meditation, I take a step inwards and prepare myself to understand and to see and to enjoy the experiment in my inner laboratory. So I take a moment to stabilize myself as the observer, as the detached observer. And I re-emerge in my awareness. One of those moments that happens regularly through an exchange, a conversation, certain things that happen between me and certain other individuals that happen regularly. I bring up into my awareness that scene, the most recent of those scenes. They spoke those words, and I felt those same feelings, and I responded or reacted in the same way. And I now bring myself into the awareness of my true self-respect. No matter what someone is saying or doing. I am a being who is worthy of love, peace, happiness, freedom. I consider myself to be a child of God. I see myself with the vision of my eternal story. I am the one who is now writing my own story. The pen is in my hands, and my actions are the words. I remember and honor myself as being the artist of my life. And it is from this perspective that I receive what the other has to offer. I am stable in my self honor, in my self respect. This is how I see myself, even in a situation of difficulty. And as I begin to respond to the person, before I respond, I stabilize myself in the vision of highest respect for their being just because of their existence. Not because of what they are doing or saying. And my vision falls on their higher self. I see beyond and through the immediate expression and energy. And the energy of upset or anger does not touch me because my vision of respect for their being acts as a protection, a spiritual immunity. I take a moment to experience this. I stabilize myself in my self respect and then in my vision of respect for the other. And from this place inside, where I see myself in the truth of my true identity as a spiritual being, I gently guide my attention once again to my physical surroundings, and I become aware of this present moment. So, this is one exercise that I have found personally very useful to clarify what is my position, what is my attitude in front of any particular person. And it helps to take away the attitude of blaming and dishing out the responsibility that is my responsibility for my feelings and my thoughts and where I'm at. So I wanted to just, as we still have a few moments, read to you a couple of short paragraphs from Dadi Janki. And one is on respect for others. Respect for others is the result of spiritual awareness. With spiritual awareness, I recognize the efforts of those around me to improve themselves. This encourages me to focus more on the potential and unique specialities of my companions rather than on their faults. In fact, this is the method to help people to become free from their faults. I can judge the quality of my spiritual awareness by seeing how much faith I have in the ultimate transformation of my companions. This faith and love is true respect. So to have the highest vision of each other, which doesn't mean to have expectations. It's a different thing. The energy of having a respectful vision and the energy of expectations are completely different. And then the second paragraph is on self-respect. The basis of self-respect is the faith that I am loved by the Supreme. Through this experience, I will be able to start loving myself. By understanding the virtues of the Supreme, so such as benevolence, complete love, and incorporating them into my daily life, faith in my own inherent worth is enhanced. It is often difficult to experience self-respect because my sense of self is usually based on external things, praise, status, income, and so on. And as these fluctuate, so does my self-appreciation. One day I'll feel as if there is no one as good as me. And then the next, I might feel utterly worthless. Actually, self-respect is not a matter of what I'm doing in my life, but rather the degree to which I bring quality and virtue to each act. So, some interesting ideas to explore and to take further and deeper. And I think most importantly, to experiment with. Because often the levels and our ability to be in our self-respect and to have a vision of respect for others determines our happiness, our levels of happiness. This is what I find. And so, in order to be happy, to experience contentment, we need to build our practice of being in our self-respect. So, thank you very much for your presence, sharing your thoughts, sharing your energy, and all the best in this practice and in developing these amazing qualities that we all have anyway. So have a wonderful afternoon.